So I'm obsessed with ARCANE. Not a shocker, really. But what is shocking is I'm a Jayce girly now. I didn't expect that. But when Season 2, Act 2 of ARCANE rolled around, I was feeling that glorious ovulation, or whatever Viktor said. And that finale? The most romantic thing I have ever seen! My point being, I felt a lot of FOMO not having a cosplay from ARCANE. And instead of making any of the fine-ass women in this show, I've decided to cosplay Jayce Tallis. Specifically, the Season 2 Act 2 version of Jayce when he's tripping balls and murdering twinks. I'm gonna go full boy mode for this cosplay. A chest binder, a beard. I'm still gonna be short as hell, but it will be about the energy I bring. And the thing that's going to make my Jayce cosplay special is the paint job. Fortiche, the animation studio that makes ARCANE, has such a beautiful, iconic 3D mix with painterly style, and I'm gonna try to paint every piece of this cosplay, the fabric, the brace, the accessories, the makeup, to look like I'm in the ARCANE style. Katsucon is coming up soon, so that'll be my deadline for Jayce. And on top of that, I'm gonna book a studio and have a beautiful photo shoot with a Viktor cosplayer too. But sitting around here talking isn't gonna get me any closer to my jayvik Nation dreams, so I'm gonna get crafting. Starting off with the most intimidating part of this cosplay, at least to me, sewing the counselor jacket. Cut out all my pattern pieces. Anyone want to tell me why it took 8 hours to do? Actually, you know what? I can tell you why it took 8 hours, because I hated every second of it. I kept taking breaks. I would lay down in bed and take a nap and read fanfiction instead of cutting out the fabric that was on my floor. Anyway, now I can actually get to assembling this thing. And the pattern I bought does come with an instruction booklet, so I'm going to read that right now. Beginning with the jacket front, use trim or bias tape. Bias tape? Oh, actually, I think I have a bias tape maker. Somewhere in... somewhere in this drawer I just broke. Uh-oh, Spaghetti-O. I don't know how they work, but there are these doohickeys. I haven't used these. I bought them like 4 years ago and I never used them. Let's see if they work. Luckily for me and my teeny tiny brain, the design does make the process obvious. Put your fabric trim into the wide end, push it through, and then it comes out folded and ready to be ironed into bias tape. That's making bias tape! Woo! Alright, well that worked. Bias tape. This gray bias tape is used as the detail lines on the front of Jayce's counselor jacket. They just get top stitched right down, and then I turn to working on the very detailed back of this jacket. Come here. Come on. You walked around with fabric. Sorry, Data Doggy. I love you very much, but it's time for a different puppy-coated man in my life. You can probably already tell by this footage, this jacket is much too large on me, and this will become an issue later. Whee! So the back of Jayce's jacket has all of these like top-stitched details, right? And I can't just sew them down because, as you can tell, this fabric frays like crazy. And I did not know that when I bought it. So I get to fold down all of these edges, iron them flat. I get to top stitch these details down onto the back of the jacket, which is going to be the piece I get the least amount of photos of. And that includes this big white piece, big gray pieces, nice big maroon pieces, and some more teeny tiny little white pieces. So I think the rest of my day is going to be ironing. Yippee! Okay. This truly did take for freaking ever to pin and iron. There are so many pieces to this back design that nobody is going to see, except for you guys, I guess. But I'm really glad I put the time into ironing these because the final product came out so nice and clean. Just like the bias tape on the front, I just laid these details down and then top stitched them in order. With
With all of these details stitched down, the assembly can begin. I can finally start assembling the front and side pieces as well to see if this thing actually fits me.
It's too big. It's too big by like a lot. And yeah, I know this is a men's jacket, but I picked a size small. I think this little like triangle here at the butt is actually supposed to be at the lower back. Like that's how much bigger it is on me than it's supposed to be. I do think I can salvage this though. There's this side panel, and I think if I just completely take out the side panels, it'll fit across my back and chest. The thing that worries me about that is then inserting the sleeves won't fit because it'll have lost all these inches, and I'm already really bad at sleeves. And I know I'm just gonna have to alter the pattern, but I'm not gonna alter it well because I'm bad at sleeves. And it doesn't help that when I'm reading the instructions on this pattern, I'm staring at my screen like, I'm just gonna seam rip all of this and do it again. Ugh. Jayce, why you gotta be such a big boy?
Much better. Who knew that a 4 foot 11 inches little cosplayer is not, in fact, the same measurements as Jayce?
As it turns out, I also did the shoulder seams wrong. I wasn't just supposed to attach the front to the back. There are these like little layered accordion pieces that are supposed to be like inserted right here. And looking at baby girl Jayce, you can kind of see it. So I'm also going to seam rip this and put this in. All right, the little shoulder detail is done, and it does still fit, luckily. And I'm moving on to the front facing lapel, which is I think the piece that just sort of sits right here. And then all of these little notch details are meant to be in, I think, gold fabric. My plan is actually to do 2mm EVA foam wrapped in gold fabric, and then it's just gonna get glued right on top. I think I'm just as scared of the collar as I am of these sleeves. Big collar pieces, little collar pieces, 2 outer and 2 facing. Oh. Huh? What? Okay, hold on. Take both, hold on. Take the collar 2 outer pieces and sew them together at the center. Back seam, press seam, open, repeat with 2 facing pieces. So yeah, I do need 4 of these. So I did that wrong. So I need to cut more fabric. Isn't this great footage? White fabric on a white desk. Just the best costuber ever. Praise me.
The collar pieces are assembled. It gets sewn along the top so that the front facing and inner lining are connected, and then the corners are cut and, of course, ironed and pressed. I am quite bad at sewing, so most of my seams are cursed, except for this one singular blessed seam.
These lapel pieces that go on the front of the jacket are confusing me. The instructions say to sew like along this line, and I don't think that's right. I don't think it should look like this, because if I turn it inside out, then this will be on the wrong side. So I think it's actually supposed to be like, this is sewn like underneath. Hold on, gotta put my camera down. I think I might be terminally stupid. Righty, moment of truth. Did I mess it up twice in a row? Then it folded over like that. Oh my god, that's how it works. I figured it out. My brain is so big and juicy.
God, the way this lapel piece gave me so much grief. I only had to sew on one piece and flip it inside out to make a folded lapel work, but it took me so many tries to get it right.
Keep flip-flopping between feeling like an idiot and a genius, but right now I feel like a genius.
It's goblin mode, because I'm back to the dreaded step of drawing and cutting out more pattern pieces. That's right, this coat is getting a lining. Cut and assemble the exact same way as the outer fabric, but do not ask me how I plan to insert this lining, because I have no idea.
I played a game as our baby boy Viktor in Earth yesterday, and I went 2-8. So I guess you guys will catch me at Worlds later this year.
Wow, why is it so foggy in my room in this clip? What on earth? Anyways, I pin on and sew one part of the collar down and then move on to the bias tape details on the ends of Jayce's sleeves. But don't worry, this is all for nothing. I sure did spend a lot of time on these sleeve details only to redo them a second time, and then they get fully shredded in the end anyways. I am at the step where I can now insert the sleeves into the sleeve holes, the step that I most don't want to do. And I know it theoretically should be pretty easy to resize these sleeves. I just have to cut off the same amount of fabric that I cut off from the pattern. But like, what if I mess it up? I'm already pretty certain that the back panel is far too big. Like, it just goes way too long down my back, but I'm at a stage where I don't want to redo it. I'm so far along. I've worked so hard, and I don't have enough fabric left to redo it, so it's just gonna be too big. No one will know except for me and all of the people watching this video. I don't want to work on the sleeves. I don't want to work on them. Keeping up with American politics has put me in a bad mood today. A mood that makes crafting not sound fun anymore. America's not at its best moment right now. It's really hard to work on silly little costumes when all I can think about is how bleak the future of my country is. But I'm sure you like coming to videos like this to have a little bit of break and moment of levity and some good fun crafting times. Just like I like watching silly little videos like this. But man, keeping up on the news sure does suck all of the joy and energy out of my soul. But what else am I gonna do, right? I got my silly little costumes to make. Maybe we should start a revolution. It's been too long since the last one. We should do another one of those.
Oh, wowee. I was sure feeling it while crafting, huh?
Not gonna lie, I'm still feeling it, sitting here writing this script and editing this video, but we must persist. A girl's gotta craft, revolution or no. Anyways, the sleeves don't fit. That certainly didn't help improve my mood. What a freaking bummer. Please remember that nothing I post is a tutorial. You're all just enjoying my journey of failure and acceptance of my flaws. Those flaws being sewing sleeves at least 3 times until it's not even right in the end, but at least it goes on my body. And yes, they did eventually fit. Not great, not perfect, but acceptable. So they get repinned and resewn, and now I have a wearable counselor jacket.
Yeah, they're really tight on the bicep because I'm just so strong. My last steps are just these tails that are much too long, figure out the lining, and also figure out lapel pieces that aren't sitting quite right. I like iron them so they would be nice and folded, but like something's going on here.
Don't mind the hole I found in the armpit, we're just gonna ignore that. Even though the jacket is most certainly too large, it's easy enough to shorten the tails. Now I'm going to attempt to bagline this jacket to the dark red lining. Baglining is putting 2 the outer facing layers together, sewing it up and then turning it inside out, but I've never successfully done that on a jacket, and lining the lapel area and the collar and the sleeves really scares me. So for now, I'm only sewing up the very bottom of the jacket at the tails, ironing it all flat and seeing how the lining sits inside the jacket, and honestly, not freaking bad. I also added in some tacking stitches to keep this lining in place while I figure out the rest of it. It's visible on the inside, but that doesn't matter as long as the outside looks nice and clean.
So here's how I'm pinning the lining to the lapel of the jacket and pinning the collar down. I've already done one side here, as you can see, and I'm going to iron it and then hand stitch all of this. I have it laid out as flat as I can, and I'm just rolling it in. I will pin it down, right? Theoretically, once it's hand stitched down, I'll have the front of my jacket, and here you can see the lapel all nice, and then the lining will be pinned to the inside, right? And I can't machine stitch this because if I stitch all the way through, you will see it through the front of the jacket. So it does have to be hand stitched. I think it's called a whip stitch, where you just kind of go in a circle. And then the collar is kind of the same thing. I've taken this inside collar, folded it, and pinned it to the lining, and I'm gonna also hand stitch this down. Don't you love it when someone who doesn't know how to sew explains sewing to you?
Hand stitching the lining is made easy with this big curved needle, and I just sewed mindlessly while playing Dungeons and Dragons with my friends. Remember how I said all this trim on the sleeves is a huge waste of time? Yeah, don't worry, I still haven't realized that yet, and spent a couple of hours adding more bias tape to enclose the sleeve lining. I just love wasting my time. But what's not a waste of time is adding these last details onto the jacket lapels, all of the gold trim. Instead of sewing down some gold bias tape, I decided on a 2mm EVA foam wrapped in stretchy gold fabric. I love the clean finish of this technique, and I've used it a lot actually in some of my different cosplays. All it takes is gluing the foam right to the fabric with some contact cement, and making sure to leave enough seam allowance on the edges to fold over the extra fabric onto the other side. Cutting the fabric strategically at the corners will help it curve around pretty much any shape. These gold pieces are also glued right down to the main jacket with more contact cement. And remember, contact cement is super toxic, so wear PPE, or do it outside, or better yet, do both. Okay, Pookie's jacket is done. Moment of truth. Let's wear Pookie. After struggling with this jacket for like a week straight, I'm pretty happy with how it came out. I think you're just adding the gold details. That's all I needed. I think the hardest part of Jayce is done. I think this jacket is by far going to be the hardest thing I have to make. And it's over with. So the rest is going to be easy breezy, right? JB not. Can't wait to just tear a bunch of holes and add a bunch of paint to this beautiful jacket I just finished. But I'm far from done. Now it is time to move on to another piece that intimidates me, and that's
The leg brace. The tricky part of this is going to be making those leg pieces rotate while I'm wearing it so it actually hinges and I can walk properly. So I have to think about the mechanics of that soon. But what makes this different to all the other props I've built is I'm going to be using my
brand new 3D printer from Elegoo, the Neptune Max 4. Now, spoiler alert, this is not the first cosplay prop I have printed with her. Elegoo actually sent me this printer a couple months ago, and I printed Dame Aylin's Sword of Justice with it. Actually, let me show you. Here is the Sword of Justice that I made out of foam. This is not giving intimidating daughter of a moon goddess. This is giving dual-wielding salamis. And here is the fully 3D printed Sword of Justice. Yeah, it turned out amazing, and this really was my very first 3D print ever. I recorded myself unboxing her and setting her up and learning how to use her and printing this beautiful giant prop, and then I lost all of that footage. So yeah, full transparency, I did learn how to use the 3D printer on the Sword of Justice and not the Jayce brace. But still, this machine has been so amazing and so useful. I can totally see why 3D printers have permeated the cosplay space, and I am just late on the draw. Everyone was telling me that 3D printing is really cool, but also very finicky, difficult to learn, and filled with endless troubleshooting. And don't get me wrong, there was a learning curve, but that sword was printed in just a week. From knowing absolutely nothing about 3D printed to having that beast of a sword finished in a week, I said it's pretty darn impressive. She is user-friendly and her printing bed is gigantic, 420 millimeters by 420 millimeters by 480 millimeters tall. That's huge. Thank you, Elegoo, for sending me this 3D printer for free. That was so kind of you. If you would like to get a 3D printer or any of their other machines, there is a link down below in the description. I wouldn't be recommending it to you if I didn't use it. All right, now I'm gonna let Gooey, that's what I named her, finish the Jayce brace, and when she's done, I will show you how I clean up these prints. I did not model this brace myself, I actually commissioned it from Baby Pingu on Instagram. And that's one of the great things about the 3D printing community, is that there are so many people out there making models, posting them for free or for purchase, and even modelers open to commissions. And so many people sharing their knowledge of this craft. which is exactly how I learned how to finish up props like this. So, let's talk about the prep work. As much as I want to jump right into painting and assembling my 3D brace, 3D prints need a lot of work before they're ready. Just in the nature of 3D printing, they will always have layer lines. Mine has a little bit of smudge from the supports that I need to remove. And the way you do that is with lots and lots and lots of sanding. And I can show you an example of one 3D print that I bought and was delivered to me, and I didn't do any finishing work on it at all. You can clearly see the layer lines. You can see where all the pieces are attached. I didn't try even a bit. Versus the Dame Alien sword I showed you earlier. That is nice and smooth, and I even like filled a lot of the gaps really nicely. There's a cop looking at me. Luckily with Jayce, this seam is like the only one in the whole design, and you can see it in the reference, so I don't actually have to do any like intense gluing. Prepping a 3D print is just repeating the same process over and over again. Like I mentioned, sanding, but there's also like a primer gap filler that you can use that helps fill in teeny tiny little gaps like some of these layer lines. There's also Bondo, which is like a gap filler that you apply with your finger and then that gets sanded down, and then you just keep doing that. You sand it, you fill it, you sand it, you fill it over and over again until you have a smooth surface. I have this flat detail sander, and I also have a Dremel, so I don't know, there's a bunch of flat edges in this thing. I figured I could just go to town and it would get rid of a lot of the layer lines for me. The theory is that that's just so much faster than using my dumb, weak little hand. But I've got about 2 weeks until Katsucon, so I should probably crank it. The good news is that the detail sander does work on these flat edges. It sure did hurt my hand real bad and gave me muscle cramps, but I am thinking it saved me a lot of time on this sanding too. Bad news is the Dremel absolutely ate up this PLA, taking nice big chunks out of some of these corners. But that's not too much of an issue because I have Bondo, glazing and spot putty. This stuff is amazing for filling in gaps and cracks and lines in 3D prints. It's also super toxic, so please wear PPE and gloves. I dab a small amount on my mistakes and just keep smoothing it with my fingers until I'm happy. I probably went a little bit too far with the Bondo. It shouldn't cover your entire 3D print, but whatever. This stuff sets super fast, so within just a few minutes, it's due for another round of sanding. But that's not the only trick I've learned. There's also filler primer, a great way to see if my props need extra sanding and also fill in any more teeny tiny gaps in layer lines. Then I repeat over and over again. Sanding, Bondo, filler primer, more sanding until my prints are smooth. It is 6 a.m. on the Monday before Katsucon, and I am working on engineering solutions right now. Something I kind of really like because the problem solving is fun, and then really hate when I can't solve the problem. Basically, I need Jayce's leg brace to like be able to move. I can't just have a stiff piece on my leg, otherwise I'll be walking around like a pirate. In the reference, there are long poles that go from the thigh piece to the knee piece, and originally I was going to do that with No, stop it! No, why did you all fall over? I have these threaded steel rods that I got from the hardware store, but I can't cut them at home. I'd have to go back to the hardware store and shamefully ask them to cut them for me. So instead I'm just using some wooden dowels. More fragile, potential breakage, yeah, but lightweight, and I can cut them here, so I'm not gonna fuss with that. And then the rod goes to the knee piece, and that's where it's gonna have to move, because my knee is the hinge of this system. But in order to get my dowel through this, normally I would like drill straight through, but after doing some Googling, you're not really supposed to drill through PLA 3D prints. Apparently it's really tough. You need a clamp. I don't have that. That's why I can't cut the metal rods. So my solution is basically just going to be having like a little pocket here, probably made out of Warbler, that the dowel slides right in. Then the dowel is gonna go down to here, and I will actually be drilling a hole through this section, even though I just said you weren't supposed to do that, but this is much smaller and hopefully it'll be okay. And when the dowel meets down here, there's gonna be a bolt with a nut on it, and then on the end of the dowel, I'll put like a loop so it can go onto here, and that'll be the rotating hinge. Does that make sense? I don't think it does. It makes sense in my mind. And then it's the same process going from the knee piece to the ankle piece, dowel and another bolt. I'm gonna rig up this monstrosity and hope it works, and then I can paint it, and I'll be done in time for GutsCon. This won't be the only time I use Warbler in my build. You'll hear more about this stuff soon. This thermoplastic gets heated up and shaped into a tube around my dowels. Then, once they cool down, they stay nice and sturdy, and I can glue them to the inside of this 3D print with plastic cement. This is also toxic! Wear a respirator! Let's bust out the power tools for a quick hole in this knee piece, and here's the assembled hinge. You can see the dowel ends in a loop, also made from Warbler, that goes around the bolt and is secured with a nut. This is where it will rotate with my leg. And I'm going to hide the bolt by inserting it into this gear shape that goes on the side of the knee. I have to go pick up shorter bolts from the store because this is the only length I have, and this is meant to be where my ankle goes, and I don't want to stab myself. We going to the lumber store and touch some grass? Yeah. To make sure these attachments are super solid, I'm trying a technique called plastic welding. That's taking some leftover PLA and melting it into my print. Again, this is toxic. Cosplay is so toxic. Please get a respirator. You need it. These fumes will make your brain explode. Okay, it won't do that, but it is bad for you. Once the PLA is cooled down, it makes a super sturdy bond for the two halves of my thigh piece and the bolt inserted into those gears. The movement works! But I quickly discover a new issue. The weight of the 3D prints wants to collapse and the knee piece comes away from my leg. I know how to fix this though. All it will take is some elastic on the back of the knee and at the ankles to be properly wearable. But those won't get attached until after the painting process. Jayce was accessorizing while he was stuck in that chasm eating shimmer salamanders. He is covered in like belts and pauldrons, and he even got like a little bracer and like little strips of fabric. So I'm gonna have to pattern those. I don't have the fabric for it, so I'm just going to use this fabric I used for the jacket and then some dye that I found in my stash. I also got this shirt and these pants from Goodwill. And I'm realizing the pants are the wrong color, so I'm gonna dye those brown. And he also doesn't have any of these wrist details that I made, so that was a waste of time. I get to rip all of that up. Yippee! I'm gonna pattern all of these details with my favorite method of cling wrap and duct tape, and then make them. Yes, I finally realized all of my bias tape efforts were mostly for nothing. Go me. Here's a free cosplay tip. Actually look at your reference more than once! Anyways, if you've watched my videos before, you know I have to cover myself in cling wrap and tape for every cosplay. Otherwise, how will I flex my freehand drawing skills at you? Haha! Look at me go! I'm kinda good at this actually. Obviously the pattern sketch is a little rough since I'm doing it on my own body. But hopefully when I take it off, I'll still have like the 3D shape of my own shoulders and my head, and I can clean it up a little bit. I marked in red where like the lapel and like the shoulder seams are, and then I also marked like left and right on here so I don't get confused when I inevitably get distracted later. I actually think I got distracted by playing League of Legends. ARCANE really grabbed me by the throat, huh? The most difficult part about this pattern is that it actually has a bunch of overlaying pieces, like this belt. It goes on top of like the main pauldron piece, and same with this belt, so I kind of have to like cut it up to get just the base pauldron pattern and then tape it back together and then cut out the belts and then do that over and over again until I have all my pattern pieces. All of these tape pattern pieces get traced over to paper so they're easier to work with, cutting and retaping and cutting again so I can get those overlapping straps. I promise it's not completely pointless to cover this EVA foam in more fabric that is currently the exact same shade of gray. I wanted the texture of the fabric weave instead of that smooth EVA foam. Jayce presumably made this out of scraps from his old outfit. He made it in a cave, out of a box of scraps! Look at our big strong man crafting down in that chasm. But it was kind of pointless to dye all of the fabric. Like with the rest of the costume, this shoulder piece is going to be entirely painted anyways. But it's nice to have a starting base that's a little bit closer to the shade I want. Just like the gold details on the jacket, I'm wrapping all of my EVA foam pieces in this fabric for the texture. One thing you'll notice is that the contact cement doesn't dry down all the way. You can still see the streaks of the glue that have seeped through the foam, and they never go away. Normally, this would mean I have to redo everything and start over. Luckily, Jayce is dirty, nasty, disgusting from rotting outdoors for weeks, so any grungy dirt textures are a-okay with me. Only in this circumstance. Thanks, Jayce! Plus, like I keep mentioning, this entire piece is gonna get extra coats of paint on top anyways.
Excuse me? What? What an ominous start to my day. So I'm going to be making all of the little buckles and doodads on Jayce out of Worbla. And if you've been cosplaying for a while, you're intimately familiar with Worbla. And if you haven't been cosplaying, it is a thermoplastic, meaning it's a type of plastic that when you heat it up, you can mold it into any shape that you want, and then when it cools down, it'll stay in that shape. Great for making big sturdy pieces. It's great for making little sturdy pieces. You don't typically want to make a full suit of armor out of it, although that's what we used to do, because it's very, very heavy. And if you've been cosplaying a while, you know to always keep your Worbla scrap. You can use even the tiniest little piece and reheat it into whatever shape you want, which is what I'm gonna be doing.
Then I didn't actually film myself doing any of that? Wow, I am such a professional! Cut to me immediately having all of my buckles finished and attached to the shoulder piece. What the heck? To make these buckles, I heated my Worbla, like you saw earlier, and rolled them into little sausages and shaped them carefully with my fingers. They're all glued onto the shoulder pieces and around the straps with hot glue. And they aren't getting painted until I start painting the rest of these pieces. I also added grommets to some of the straps with my grommet press. It can easily press through fabric and EVA foam. The last details needed for the shoulder piece are some red strips of fabric. They needed to be lit on fire, just a smidge, because this fabric frays so easily and the fire melts the edges of the fabric. The whole shoulder pauldron and straps is all one piece, so I don't have to fiddle with too many little bits. It just wraps around my back and under my arm and then gets velcroed to itself for easy wear and removal. Jayce has got one more detail I haven't made yet, his Talish logo shoulder piece, which means I get to bust out the cling wrap and duct tape again. This is a common sight in my cosplay crafting process, walking back and forth between my mirror and my reference on my computer. This piece is also getting crafted from trusty EVA foam, but not covered in fabric this time. You'll see it's got way too many multicolored details for that. All of these smaller gold details on top are patterned with more tape once the base of this pauldron is constructed. I make sure to fill those foam seams with quick seal, a flexible type of bathroom caulk, then the details are added on top layer after layer. This thrifted shirt I grabbed doesn't quite fit me, so I just take that in real quick. And realize there's just a bit more to do on the pants.
Neglecting all of the fabric bits that are below Jayce's knees. He's got some white and some red details and then like some wrapped dark gray fabric details, and I haven't paid attention to any of that yet. So what I think I'm gonna do is add the white and red details that happen like above the boot line, I guess, but his right and left leg are different.
So instead of making boot covers and dyeing more dark gray fabric because I didn't make enough, I'm just gonna paint the boots to look vaguely similar to the reference and hope that's good enough. Pookie. It is easy enough to cut apart these pants and add my extra red and white details. This is honestly more of a time-saving measure to get close enough to the reference before I leave for Katsukan. But actually, now most of the crafting is done. I think I need to try on all these finished pieces to see how I feel. Let's do a quick test fit, why don't we? I kind of hate it. I don't know. There's still a couple things missing. But, you know, sometimes you put on the work in progress and you're like, I'm so excited! And I'm not. Part of me wants to stop what I'm doing and style the wig. And the lace front beard that I ordered got delivered to Chicago, where I do not live. Obviously the paint job and the brace and the other missing elements might make me feel better. Oh, actually, you know what? Okay, I do feel a little bit cooler now. It's only 8:30, I've still got a little bit of energy in me, so I think I'm going to get to work on destroying my coat. So, fabric painting. Not only do I have to make Jayce's clothes look all dirty and grungy, but I also want to try completely recreating the Fortiche, like, painted style on everything. So, the jacket, the shirt, the pants, the hammer, all of it. I want to make those, like, exaggerated highlights and lowlights. I've never done that before, but painting is one of my strengths, so I'm basically just gonna go to town with my palette and try not to mess it up, because it is also the stage that is the easiest to, like, ruin a lot of the hard work that I just did. I can always repaint a prop. Like, if a prop doesn't turn out the way I want, I can just cover it in another coat of primer and then try again, but I can't really do that with fabric, so I gotta try to nail it the first time. And also I have 2 days to do this, so I don't have time to redo it, even if I wanted to. I will be painting with my absolute favorite brand, Angelus Leather Paints. I'm starting with the undershirt first. I put a piece of cardboard inside it to kind of stretch out the fabric and make it easier to lay down my paints. Reference, shirt, paint, go! I mix some Angelus fabric medium with the paints to make sure it doesn't dry too stiff, and just go to town mixing my colors, using parts of the fabric that aren't visible to test how they look on the shirt. Most of this shirt is covered by the jacket, so I only need to pay attention to the very front. I'm just adding some medium dark tones and following the reference of Jayce as close as possible, building up darker and darker shades. I wish I could give you some tips on my painting technique, but I've been painting for far longer than I've been cosplaying, and it's all kind of second nature to me now. For the fabric though, I'm using really quick and broad strokes with very little paint on the actual brush. It's always easier to add more paint, but if you glob too much on, it can't be taken away. Once I'm happy with the dark tones, mimicking the folds in the shirt, I mix together lighter tones for the highlights. These are going on the very edges of the top and bottom of the shirt, plus what would be like the raised part of the fabric folds. Again, I'm just following the reference, which is easy to do when the shirt is stretched and flattened over this big piece of cardboard. I can't forget those hex core infection looking details all over Jayce's fabric. I love this little bit of texture it adds. painting process is much the same for the pauldrons. I'm going through the shirt and the pauldrons first as practice before I get to the white counselor jacket because this piece still intimidates me. It's the main character of Jayce's design and I want it to look perfect. These sleeves ended up being the toughest pieces to paint just because I have to make sure every angle blends together, curving around my arm and all the places it will naturally fold. But still adding those hex core infection details and hoping those two elements don't clash with each other. Took like 3 hours to do this one arm. I was just telling Matt, if this were any other project and I wanted to dirty up my clothes, I would just go actually dirty it up. Like I would go roll around in the dirt and like rub paint in my hands. But I don't want it to look dirty. I want it to look like it's from ARCANE. I tried a different technique for the other arm. I dabbed on some paint in the places where the fabric was creasing with my arm movements. Back and forth between my paint palette and the mirror, then laying it flat and cleaning up the rough shadows afterwards. Wow, it's really nice to see this time lapse. Sometimes I don't think my paint job does enough, but this is showing me just how much it changed from a pristine white jacket. The shades getting layered darker and darker as the details get added makes me so happy that I actually spent time on this effect. Please enjoy this time-lapse ARCANified paint job of my Jayce jacket. That looks damn good if I do say so myself.
Bitch, I'm him. I-T-B-O-Y.
But I can't forget the gold details too.
That's right. That's me. That's right. I am H-I-M. The Gen Z Eminem. That's me. That's right. That's me. That's right. That's me.
The pants also get a round of paint, only on the front. I'm just hoping it doesn't look like I peed myself.
200K got me jumping on stage. All white Benz, see me whipping mayonnaise. She looking at me, she wanna taste. Shawty got a boyfriend, get out my face. Hey bitch, born on smoke it like endo. Free throw, never catch me in a friend zone. Catch real green cheese pesto. Eating her box like bento. Memento. Tech keep busting like Pepsi. Mentos fit all money, yeah, this ain't Kenzo.
The nice clean gold and silver spray paint on the brace looks nice, but it's too flat. Like the rest of the costume, it needs more!
I-T-B-O-Y, B-B-N-O $sign. That's me, that's right, that's me, that's right. I am H-I-M, the Gen Z Eminem. That's me, that's right, that's me, that's right.
I painted long into the nights as Katsukan approached, and on top of this, I was also trying to finish Jayce's hammer in time to fly out. But I think you know how that's gonna wind up. Good morning from rainy Los Angeles. I leave for Katsukan tonight. And here's the stuff I still have to do. Paint the hammer, obviously. Paint some little accessories. Style the wig. Make attachments for the brace and the pauldron. Paint the shoes, but that will be absolutely last priority. My flight doesn't board until like 11 p.m. So I do still, in fact, have all day to get this done. But it's still a lot to do. I think it's like my third year in a row of crunching the day I leave for Katsukan. When am I gonna learn?
Never. I'm never going to learn. This is my curse. But hey, look how good all these painted pieces look. The leg brace got elastic added to the back of the knee and to the back of the ankle so I can actually walk around properly without the weight of the 3D print making it fall. The red talus shoulder pauldron gets matching Velcro on the jacket, so this is easier to store and travel with. And I can confidently say that I feel a lot better in this try-on than I did in the last one. I think having all this paint made a huge difference to how I feel about it. There's still one more piece missing to make this cosplay truly wearable, because my baby boy Jayce is not blonde.
This Jayce wig is perfectly fine out of the bag. It was advertised as a Jayce wig on Doki Doki, the cosplay store, not the literature club. But he's too fluffy and like pristine. I need him to look like gross and dirty and greasy. So I'm going to absolutely douse this thing in hair gel and hairspray. And probably thin it out a little bit too, because like I said, the hair is just too fluffy. Yeah, he's got like hairs kind of like sticking out and like wetly like loose. It's also like one of those fake lace fronts that's super ugly, but I don't have time to replace it with a real one.
First things first, let's remove some of the fluff with my fitting shears. Once again, I am blessed to be cosplaying a dirty grunge dirt man who hasn't visited his barber in a while. I just sort of hack at the wig in random spots without a care in the world. And to begin styling, the entire wig gets doused in hairspray. I mean absolutely drenched. I spray and then run through the wig with my hands and a comb to spread it through the strands. There's only a couple of bang pieces that I actually want to match the reference and lay properly on my forehead like they do on Jayce. So for those, I use some Got2b hair gel instead of spray. The extra effect this gives the wig is a look of being greasy and unwashed. Perfect for my Pookie. He really teleported back into Piltover, smelly and gross, smushed that twink, and then probably should have taken a shower before walking all the way to Viktor. I mean, imagine if Jayce had like folded instead of shooting him, and Viktor was just like, "Oh my god, man, you reek. I don't have body odor anymore because I am made of metal now." And Jayce is like, "Viktor, I can't do it. My partner. This might be a cult, but we do have showers. You can tell me about how much you love me in there." Wink wink. Anyways, let's try this wig on. And with a couple of extra snips and minor adjustments, this cosplay's actually ready to be packed up for Katsucon. What do we think?
It's a little fluffy in some places, I think, so I might go back in with the shears and trim it down even more, but I think it's fine. So you might have noticed me sitting in front of my packed luggage, and the hammer I've been working really hard on is nowhere to be found. Yeah, it just sort of occurred to me while I was in the middle of painting this side that this level of detail had taken me, I don't know, 2 hours to do. And I hadn't even started on the other side, or on any of the gold details, or on the hex core, or on the rest of the staff of the hammer. Never mind the fact that I didn't even actually show you any of the process of getting this far in making the hammer. So this is spoilers for my next video. Please tune in again next time when I show you how to craft this and paint it properly. And then on top of that, I actually really hate how this paint job is coming out. But that's what you get when you con crunch. You just cut corners and you don't really pay attention. And you're just like, I just gotta get done close enough, whatever. And then you step back for a second and go, oh. I'm still gonna wear Jayce to Katsucon because it's a wearable costume and I am actually quite proud of how that part turned out. But I don't want to bring this when I'm not happy with it. So the hammer will have to wait until I'm back and I can properly take my time painting it, and then I can book a photo shoot. In fact, I already have plans to book a jayvik photo shoot with a friend who is a Viktor cosplay, and I'm so freaking stoked! That's the real motivation behind cosplaying, is getting dressed up and kissing your homies.
So let's get to Katsucon already and kiss the homies. What in the heck you waiting for?
Katsucon is an East Coast convention held at the Gaylord Convention Center in Maryland. It's most well known for its beautiful spaces, gazebo that is impossible to get a photo with nowadays, and some of the most outstanding, gorgeous, show-stopping cosplay you have ever seen. Oh, and it's also known for being kind of cursed. Nobody has shit in the gazebo still, but a water pipe did burst above the artist alley this year. That sucked.
Good morning, Katsucon Day 2. I had to go make a CVS run because I actually forgot a bunch of makeup that I need for Jayce. And then on top of that, the beard I ordered didn't get delivered. The acceleration rune that goes on the inside of his wrist also didn't get delivered. So we're just gonna have to figure that out with some brushes and some eyeshadow, I guess. I will certainly not be getting any photos or videos in the iconic gazebo. It's had a line since like 6 a.m. The meetup is in like 2 hours, but Jayce makeup does take a while, so I really gotta get going.
A long time ago, I did a makeup test of Jayce without the beard, and it went really well. And I didn't record any of this process or talk to the camera because my roommates were still sleeping. But yeah, it really does take me like 2 hours to get ready in Jayce. Brr, I'm gonna kill you, Viktor, rah.
I meant to check in more, but how do we feel? He's done. I hope it looks better with the wig on.
And without further ado, here is my baby girl, Jayce Tallis. Everyone say a big thank you to my Pookie Damaris, cosplaying as low-key Mel Medarda, for getting this footage of my Jayce at Katsucon. I can't believe Jayce fumbled this baddie. I didn't get to kiss this homie, maybe next time, but I did find Cobalt cosplay in a crowd as Machine Herald Viktor, and I stole a smooch, kissing the homies at Katsucon. jayvik real! And I ran into my pals Lux and Anakin as Time Bomb, and I met one Emily's cosplay in her Fallen build. I recently discovered her YouTube crafting channel, and it's really good stuff, so give her a watch too if you like me or any other cosplay videos. I had a really great time as Jayce, even missing the rune and missing the beard, even when the leg brace broke after I smashed it violently on the side of a toilet. And even though this cosplay is way outside my normal wheelhouse, the reactions from my friends have been a joy. Getting to challenge myself in a boy mode outfit is fun as hell. And of course, getting to dress up as my absolute favorite ARCANE character. I still can't quite tell you what it is about Jayce Tallis that gripped me so vigorously. Maybe it's his vulnerable nature, seeking comfort in the women in his life. His puppy dog eyes every time he looks at his partner Viktor. Maybe it's him trying so hard, putting his life's work into his dream of improving other people's lives only to fail over and over again, and still trying his hardest to save the people he loves. Maybe it's just those big fat tits and submissive vibes and that romantic as hell ending, I don't know. But I got to step into the shoes of my favorite guy for a day, and that's pretty special to me.
Baby boy Jayce isn't actually done yet though. There's of course the hammer, which I am finishing up next. I also didn't do any of the shoe details that I said I was going to finish. The beard arrived while I was in DC, and so did the acceleration rune that goes on his wrist. I hope you'll at least stick around for me finishing up this hammer and shooting some jayvik content with my friend Brooke.
That's the call to action, so that you can subscribe and see more and like the video and comment. Tell me your favorite jayvik fanfiction. Mine is Origin of Sickness by Whiskey Uncle.
Besides making a video about the crafting of this hammer, I am also working on a video of competing in a Masters level cosplay contest with my latest big build, Dame Aelin from Baldur's Gate. I'm sure a lot of you are going to be asking for a series of videos about crafting Dame Aelin, which I would very much love to give you, but I can't. Well, I guess you'll just have to wait until that video comes out too, to see why. Thank you very, very much to Elegoo for sending me the Neptune Max 4. I love this machine. Elegoo has been so kind and patient with me, and this thing is pretty freaking amazing. There is a link below to their products if you would like to get started on 3D printing as well. Anyway, I'm gonna go read some fan fiction and draw my D&D character and play my next craft project. Bye! Dogs out? Arcane Season 3 is just Mel's feet pics. Anyway.